with, or we had some issue with technology, but it looks like we're up and good. We're streaming as well. All right, awesome. So the time is now 7:53. Board, our next group with us tonight is JG Consulting and Mr. James Guerrera. And so we will yield the floor to him at this time.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for having us. As Mr. Sherman said, my name is James Guerrera. I'm the president and CEO of JG Consulting. We're a 1/4 consulting company. My colleagues joining me this evening are Dr. Patricia Linares to my immediate left. On the other side of Dr. Linares is Dr. Dolores Warnell. Both experienced, both retired superintendents who get to help manage me and keep me in line. So as I like to share with our friends in the communities that we will be serving and the distinguished board members in front of us this evening, they are the brain trust. So I'm the talking head for the evening, but as the practitioners go, these are the two folks that you'll be seeing, and then we'll be a team of 3 and eventually a team of 10. So we greatly appreciate the invitation to be here this evening. We're going to go through a quick demonstration presentation, if you will, and then open the floor for some dialogue and look forward to your questions. So what you're going to see tonight, you have in front of you. Feel free to take that home, keep that. That's for your own reference later on. So let's just take a deep dive into this. All right, so I mentioned a little bit about us, but I'll explain a little bit more about the team. I've been working in the education space for the past 16 years, taught for a couple, but have been a consultant for the majority of my career. We have managed a number of executive searches ranging from the principalship up to the superintendent and even the State Department of Education. So we're a full-service firm, meaning that executive searches of superintendents isn't the only thing that we engage in. We actually run a national leadership academy coaching and training aspiring superintendents from around the country. In fact, Dr. Linares is a part of that team. We have several retired superintendents that work as a part of our faculty nationwide. We're the only national search firm that's based in Texas. Our headquarters is in downtown San Antonio, but we have regional offices all over the state. And you might have saw in our proposal that we have a local office here in the neighboring area and also downtown Dallas. So we do a number of different things, not just the executive search work, but I call attention to that because the leadership academies that we run help build an aspiring and ascendant track of future superintendents. So we have a tremendous pulse on talent nationwide, not just in the state of Texas. And Dr. Linares is most recently the superintendent in Crowley ISD, not too far from here, and also in Fort Worth ISD. She's been my left-hand, right-hand, if you will, for 4 years now, working under the auspice of JG Consulting. Dr. Warnell is most recently superintendent in Bloomington ISD. So I'm fortunate to have them both, and like I said, they're the brain trust, they're the brains behind everything. All right, so a little bit more about our services and the way we work. So our mission is very simple. At the end of the day, it's about the student outcomes, the satisfaction of the communities that all of you serve, the student performance, and the satisfaction of the school district. I'll talk a little bit about the guarantee as we get towards the end of our presentation, but we have a 2-year guarantee in our contract and in our proposal that's in front of you. The 2-year guarantee is simple. Should the hired superintendent, the lone finalist, serve less than 2 years of service in his or her seat, we will conduct the executive search in its entirety at no cost to DeSoto ISD going forward. And knock on wood, we've never had that occur. In fact, all of the sitting superintendents that we've placed in the last 4 years are still serving in their current role, and they've actually have been extended in their contracts. And so the impact of this work is incredibly important, as you know. So I want to thank you for your service to DeSoto ISD. It's not lost on us as a team, and we understand and take very seriously the importance of this work. It's the most important decision that you'll make as elected members of your community. And so we are a very intentional and very selective bunch. And what I mean by that is we don't aim to serve every school district across the state or rather across the country. We pick and choose which school districts, which school boards have a rich tradition and a strong reputation to partner with. So we will be a true partner in this work and a collaborative effort. To give you a sense of some of our current clients and past clients, there before you is a list of our current clients and past clients. Currently, to date, we're on the back nine, as I'd like to say, of the Crosby Independent School District Superintendent search, where they went through a very aggressive time frame. And to give you some quantitative data, we had the application posted for 3 weeks. Typically, we have our applications posted for no less than 30 days. But at the discretion of the board and their charge to us, we posted it for 21 days. In the 21-day time period, we had 77 applications and representative of 14 different states from across the country. So tonight, in fact, while we're here together with you, one of our other colleagues is there with them. They're in the final rounds of their interviews of the 2 lone finalists. So I will be expecting a phone call from them tonight to say, hey, James, we've selected our lone finalists. Tomorrow night, they intend to name the lone finalists at their board meeting. The other search that we're finishing up right now is in Donna, Texas, in the Valley, school district, about 15,000 students. They're in Region 1. They're approaching their first final rounds of interviews coming up this next weekend. So all to say, when we begin our partnership working with you and serving the community of DeSoto, you will be our only and dedicated partner in the superintendent search. So we will have all attention on you guys. Some differentiating factors about us. As you can tell, we're very tech-driven. We do a lot with technology to maximize our recruitment efficiencies and eliminate redundancy. And it also helps us accelerate the time frame if that's something that is of interest to you. Historically, when I first started in this space of doing superintendent searches, the process could take anywhere from 6 months to 9 months. With our technology, our network, and our ability to cast a wide net in a very short period of time, but very directly to the type of superintendent you're looking for to serve in DeSoto, we can conclude anywhere from 3 months to 4 months in its entirety and go through the entire process that way. And part of that is due to the fact that we are technology driven. And we're going to get into that in a moment. I'm going to show you an example of what the technology looks like. So the recruitment, I'll talk briefly about that. I mentioned that we run a leadership academy. You may have seen me at other events speaking. Dr. Linares was just this past weekend speaking to an aspiring group in Denver, the Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents. They have a cohort that just graduated this weekend. So we're on the front end in the cutting edge of working with these groups as they're on their ascending track. So we cast a net with that group. We work with the Council of Great City Schools. You might have seen me speaking at the National Alliance of Black School Educators Conference or the local one. Every year for the past 4 years, Dr. McFarland and Dr. Goffney have invited me to speak on a mock panel, if you will, of search firms to impart some wisdom, the best that I can, on the aspiring cohorts of the TABC network. So we like to be as present, as involved with these organizations, so that way we can identify who the rising talent is. Because if you think of the state of Texas right now, if you were to look at texasisd.com specifically, you might see that there's roughly 50 vacancies for a superintendent of schools right now, as of today. And the reason being there's so many of the superintendents who are exiting are retiring. So, it's important for us to gauge the rising stars, if you will, within this space. And so we like to say that we do a very good job of keeping a pulse on the talent that's in K-12, not just, again, in Texas, but nationally. The other thing that's unique about us is that we work in the non-traditional settings quite well, meaning if you have an attorney who aspires to be a superintendent, we've seen some school boards that have had an appetite for that type of leader who comes from the non-traditional route. Also, private sector or nonprofit of education. One example is in the El Paso area. Juan Cabrera is a prime example of this. He's an attorney but had some teaching experience, and when that district had a board of managers, they felt like it was imperative that they had somebody with a little bit more unique skill set. And he has a law degree. That's his background. So all to say, we have deep roots in all different types of networks and channels. I mentioned this earlier, so I'm not going to get into this too much, but we cast a net. And our faculty, we have 23 retired superintendents across the country that represent JG Consulting. We just added our newest member to the team this week, Dr. Michael Escalante. He chairs the doctoral dissertation program for the USC School of Education. We also have Dr. Lavelle Brown in the state of New York. You may have heard his name. He's the Superintendent of the Year in the state of New York. He is one of our Leadership Academy coaches. And the way that works, just to be clear so that there's no conflict of interest with our faculty base, what we do is we review all of the superintendent contracts. We work with the school board's attorney, with our attorney, to make sure there's no ambiguity and there's no conflict of interest. Because we want to be clear that everything that we're doing is in the spirit of advancing these folks appropriately and properly through their career path. So I talked about the timeline. So this is a tentative and a proposed timeline that I put together based on the research and what I know to date what the market looks like in the state and nationally. So hypothetically, if we were to begin this project the remainder of this month, including the community stakeholder meetings, what we'll typically do is sit with each of you, ask you a series of questions, one of which is, who in the community would you like us to visit with? It could be faith-based leaders, local businessmen and women, anyone that you recommend, we will make an attempt to meet with, whether it's in person or a whole group or small group. We'll meet with student groups, parent groups, all of the above. We welcome any referral and recommendation you have us meet with. So during the remainder of the month of May, we will do our best to knock that process out, provide a synthesized report back to each of you to give you some detailed feedback on what the community has shared with us. And so we'll paraphrase that in a way that makes sense. And what that does is that will drive our next charge of developing the job profile and the job description. Because these lovely community members that are here, it's important for them to have a voice. And I think we all agree that their voice should be heard. So we're going to incorporate their voice in the job profile and the job description based on these meetings. And then you'll approve that and you'll say, okay, James, okay, team, let's post the application for X number of days. That clock would start ticking if we were to get everything done through the remainder of May. By the 1st of June, hypothetically, we could have the application posted through the end of June. We could start vetting, screening, using all of our resources to identify who the top talent are. Now, when we extract all of this information, we use an online repository to store the info. So all of the resumes, the letters of interest, any artifact that a candidate provides to us, we are going to store, and then we're going to archive that until we present to you the candidates. And now when we do that, each of you are going to have a binder. And in that binder, you're going to have the top recommendations based on what we've seen and how these candidates align to the job profile and the job description. You'll be able to identify with us who you feel are the best potential fits to serve here in DeSoto. And it could be, let's just say, 6 or 7 folks you'd like to bring in, and then we'll conduct the first round of interviews. But it's important for me to note that we're not going to withhold any of the candidate information from you. So we do not operate with a stable of candidates. Everybody will have an equitable opportunity to apply should he or she meet the minimum job description and the qualifications in the job description. So what we generally do when we meet and we go through the candidate profiles, you're going to have a group A, which will consist of the top 10 based on our opinions and our experiences. Group B will be the delta of the remaining balance of the candidates, and you're going to have access to both. So, for example, if you do not feel the same that we do about any one of the top 10, you can say, hey, James, hey, Pat, hey, Dolores, I'd like to take a look at this candidate. And we could show you their online video. We can give you more information as it pertains to those candidates. So we'll never withhold information. You're going to have access to everything. And so that's part of our transparency and our promise to you. So if we were to plan and if everything goes as planned, I know that you're not in any urgency from what I've read and doing the research that I've done, but we can name a lone finalist as early as August. So that's the tentative timeline, but again, we work for you. We don't represent the candidates, we represent you, the board. So that's important to note. So if you, as a board, share with us that you have a specific deadline and a timeline in mind, that's our target, and that's what we'll hit. All right, so some of our other clients, you saw this on the list. This is just a screenshot of our good friend and colleague, Cinto Ramos. We supported the recruitment effort of Dr. Scribner from Phoenix here to the great state of Texas several years ago when Pat was the interim there. I was asked to intervene and help them with their executive search. And since then, we've managed 5 of their cabinet-level searches. If you recall, I mentioned earlier in my opening remarks that we're a full-service firm. We recruit everything from the principalship up. So we've done everything in Fort Worth from currently we're finishing up their athletic director search. We just finished their chief of HR. We've done several academic level roles, including chief academic officer. And if you were to call Cinto, he might say to you, James is the Jerry Maguire of the search work. And so I take that as a term of endearment and a compliment. So I'll take ownership of that. I'm cool with that. It's a good movie. So Cinto is one of our most recent, and the board is one of our most recent clients. San Marcos Consolidated. This is Ann Halsey. She was the vice president of the school board when they hired us to recruit. They had 72 applicants in their total pool, which is very, very deep and competitive for a district their size, which at the time was less than 7,000 students. And we had representation from all over the United States for that position. And that concludes my short presentation. But I am going to get to the montage, if I can signal the guys in the back. Yeah. So what I'm about to show you, if you want to say a few words while I go back there and
Sure.
get to it? Okay. Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot.
We can easily get up. I think one of the things that I have said many times over is what makes us a little bit different is the fact that we have the online interview. So when we come to the board and we have the opportunity to show you the top 10 candidates, that is your first view of the candidates, and because they have it on an online video. You will see an example of that. The online video, oh, I'm sorry, although having been a principal, I don't really need a microphone. But the online video that the candidates do and have to perform once they turn in their documents, it actually asks 4 different questions. Each question, they have 2.5 minutes to answer the question. When we bring this to you, that allows you to not only have pieces of paper by which to see whether or not a candidate you feel is qualified and a good fit for your community, it also allows you to hear their answers for a good 10 minutes. It gives you a good view of, who the person is, how they articulate their desire and their dedication to being your new superintendent. And so I think that's very different from most of the search firms. And what it has allowed to do, the board members say that is one of the things that they love best. They actually get a first interview just online. Then they can decide who are the people that we want to bring in face to face. So we're about to show you an example.
Right. Yeah, and the other, the screenshot that's up there is something that we do, again, going back to the technology statement that we both have made. I tweeted and posted on our LinkedIn, our company profile, thanking each of you for inviting us to be here tonight. And you can see on the data on the screenshot that we had 1,500 views in less than 4 days. So that gives you a sense of the reach that we have and the type of network that we have. The other firms, not to marginalize their work, because we all do work collegially with one another, and we're all friends in this space. It's a small, incestuous world, as we all know. But we're the only group, to Pat's point, that does any of this with technology. And it's going to give you a sense of who the candidates are before we bring them in on planes, trains, and automobiles to visit with you. All right, sir, I'm going to go ahead and... So what you're about to see is that series of questions. We're just going to play one for you. If you'd like to see more, we will.
Read the question.
So this first question, and they have it in front of them in their screens. So as you can see, they're all the candidates are asked the same 4 questions in this case. And the school board in Hutto ISD have provided us, and we gave us some input on the questions they wanted to ask in this process. So when the candidates are invited to complete this process, they are using their own device. So there isn't any one of us on the other end. They're preloaded questions. They can re-record their answers as many times as they want until they feel comfortable with their answers, and then they submit. It comes to the team of consultants. We review, and we take this information as part of that pare down process to identify the top 10. And you'll have access to these videos. We're going to show you these videos when we meet, and you can ask us questions. You get a sense of who they are, and then we make the final selection as a team who you'd like to bring in. So this individual is Dr. Selena Estrada Thomas. She was named this past year in Hutto ISD, or a school district outside of Austin, fast growth district. It was her first time to be named as a superintendent. She came from another district with a wealth of experience. Dr. Thomas did a terrific job, obviously. They named her. First time a female has ever been hired in the district. First time a minority leader has ever been hired in that district. So we're very proud of that fact. So if you don't mind, sir.
Good afternoon. What drew me to the position with Hutto ISD? Several factors. One is location and familiarity, the student diversity, the challenges with fast growth. I have spent the last 26 years in the Central Texas area. I was born and raised in the Rio Grande Valley, but my children and I moved up here in 1991 when I was accepted to the Cooperative Superintendency Program through the University of Texas at Austin. And so we spent the first 18 years in the Round Rock Hutto area. That's where they were raised, and they graduated from the high schools there. So I'm very familiar with the growth challenges that obviously that Round Rock experienced, and now it's obviously spilled over into the Hutto community. I am currently the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction in Fredericksburg ISD, and one of the features I love about Fredericksburg is just the size and that sense of family, that sense of community, that sense of connectedness among the kids, the parents, the staff, everyone from transportation, the maintenance to clerical to our teachers. Everyone just rallies behind the schools. And part of my goal as the superintendent for Hutto ISD would be to maintain that sense of family and community. Despite the growth, we want to have that welcoming spirit and embrace all the new kids and families into our school system. This is my 35th year in education. I have no plans of stopping anytime soon. As long as I'm growing and learning, I'm going to keep working. One of my career goals is to be a superintendent, but the superintendent of the right school system. I've not been a career climber or a position climber. I've really taken my time to develop my leadership skill set, and I'm ready to be a superintendent. I've worked in large school districts and small districts, and Hutto is the perfect size for me, again, to maintain that sense of family and unity, which I think is vital to making a school system successful. I look forward to discussing a future with Hutto ISD.
All right, terrific. So I hope that gave you a sense of, you can go ahead and pause it, sir. Thank you. So I hope it gave you an idea, some insight and a window into how we operate when it comes to the online interview process. So in the simplest of ways to demonstrate, that's essentially what it looks like. That's what you'll have access to with your own customized questions, of course. What you'd like to ask these candidates, that's what we'll have them answer. And then we'll present that to you when we meet as a team to identify who you'd like to invite in for the in-person interview. So that concludes our formal presentation. I guess now we have some questions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Board. Once again, if you have any questions, this is JG Consulting. We'll entertain those at this time.
Well, I'll just say, so far tonight, you're the only person that just really highlighted the importance of casting a wide net and not just focusing on Texas. Not that Texas is bad, but just making sure that we're really trying to attract the best person for this district. So I think that's a good thing. You seem to take that very seriously from what I've read of all of your information. It also seems that you guys seem to pay a lot of attention to diversity in the candidates that you are presenting. That's without just in your casting your net then in terms of stereotyping a district. Just be honest. Stereotyping a district and only bringing one type of person. It seems that you guys seem to pride yourself in casting that wide net in every aspect of the search. And I think that's certainly something that's important for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you acknowledging that, and I would say, because I would be remiss if I didn't mention this, and Dr. Linares may have. When we present the top 10, you'll notice that there's a balance of equal balance of gender, both male and female representation, but a diverse pool. To your point, I think our experiences over the course of all of our careers as a team have afforded us a great opportunity to get to know some tremendous talent nationwide. I was born and raised in Texas. However, I lived on the West Coast, East Coast, returned home 4 years ago. So being a bit of a nomad throughout my career has given me a great advantage in this work, because you get to work with some very tremendous folks. And, as I mentioned, speaking at the various events with NAPSI, ALAS, Council of Great City Schools, and getting to work with wonderful trustees, and then ultimately we become friends. I like to think the biggest reward of all of this is, in this work, is we make great friendships out of this work. I mentioned Mr. Ramos in Fort Worth. Had it not been for the executive search work, I don't know that he and I would ever have crossed paths. But to this day, I consider him a friend, and that's something that we value very much. So I appreciate your comment.
Tell me again, the whole idea of offering, if a superintendent doesn't work out within a 2-year period, from where I'm sitting, I just hold the board responsible for that period. I mean, in terms of, obviously, if there was something that you should have disclosed that was a very serious omission, then I could certainly understand that. But I just certainly hold the board responsible for not surrendering their judgment and choosing the best person, because that's just their job. Right. That's just their number one job. So why is it important to you? Because in this, you can't make guarantees about who you present to us. You're trusted that this candidate is going to be the best person, is going to do the best job. Right. Why is it important to you to offer something like that?
It's kind of a twofold answer, if I will. So great question. So it's an industry standard of the national firms to offer this. So you mentioned that in the context of what you heard tonight, we're the only ones that talked about the national net. The other firms that are nationally known, we all have a commitment in our contract, and that clause simply states it's a 2-year contract. Now, I knock on wood, all of the superintendents that we've placed have well exceeded that term, so we've never had to engage in a practice where we have to do it again for free. And I'll put it this way: when we recruit and speak with candidates, I am very blunt and to the point. Do not leave us at the altar. If you are willing and wanting to serve in DeSoto ISD, you're going to be there for the long haul. If I get any inclination during the recruitment or vetting of these individuals, and they share with me, or if I get my personal intuition, kicks in, I'll say to them, look, I get the sense that you're going to use this as a stepping stone. You may stay for, let's just say, 3 years. They'll lose my interest, because I want somebody who's here and committed to make change and impart change with you as a team of 8. And so it's very important for us, and it's our reputation. At the end of the day, it's our reputation on the line, and we want to serve you the best that we can, because we work for you and not the candidates. So that's why I'm able to have those direct conversations, and we all do as a team. If they give us any idea that they're looking to use this as a placeholder in their career path, say thank you, but no thank you. DeSoto ISD is not for you.
This is just for my personal information. Can you leave me some information about your principal search? Thank you.
Sure.
So as the person who's been talking about headhunters for the last 7 years on the board, I appreciate your approach. I also appreciate the breadth of your work in terms of not just doing superintendent searches, but also principal searches, as well as other key positions. I mean, I've been saying that you would think that somebody would listen, but I appreciate that work. But what was more impressive to me, and I didn't want to prompt anybody, so I didn't want to mention it to anyone else, but you're the first individuals to mention meeting with student groups. Because so often in this work, we forget about children. And you're the first group to have said that, and I listened very clearly, because so often that's the group of people that we neglect their thoughts or perspectives about what they want in a leader, in a school district, or in anything. So I can appreciate that. I think the technology component, I think, is extremely beneficial in that I'm just going to give you a heads up. This is the board, at least as I know it, who is going to want to at least have access to everybody who threw their name into consideration. And so I think that adds an additional flavor outside of just reading it on a resume, but to be able to kind of pick up on some things and kind of read some of those sincerity concerns. And so I definitely appreciate that piece. Kind of what my standard question would have been, you kind of answered it in terms of the caliber of your search pools and what those have looked like. My question is, what level of involvement, and I've seen it different ways, what level of involvement have you guys had in the actual interview process? Not necessarily facilitating the interview, but what level of involvement have you guys had in the actual interview process?
Right.
Specifically the first one versus the second round.
So our involvement in the interview process is very high level, and what I mean by that is if you request that we provide you with a sample or item bank of questions to consider and to curate as a board, we will do that and help provide you with even a script. But as far as the actual involvement in the interview, that's as the elected members of the board and representatives of your community, we recuse ourselves. We will be here to meet and greet the candidates as they come and go to make sure they're not crossing paths with one another as they're exiting and entering the building. And we do that to protect the confidentiality, to monitor the media. If there's any press here, I would say and encourage you to consider diverting and deflecting any media requests or reports. So when local press inquires with you and asks questions about how this is going, you can feel comfortable saying, talk to James, talk to Pat. We will handle that. But as far as the interview itself, we are not in the interview room. We feel that that decision should be only on the board and not us. We don't want to make it appear as if we're swaying any biases one way or the other, because again, we represent you and not the candidates. So that's important to keep reiterating. So I believe that answers your question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
And to your point, too, I would be remiss, because we did not talk about this, but I did mention we're a full-service firm. Talking about student outcomes is major, it's paramount. It's what's going to produce a vibrant economy, not just in this great state of Texas, but nationwide. We're the only executive search firm in the state that is going through, as a whole team, through the Lone Star Governance training next month. So we are going to be vetted, so to speak, and endorsed by Mr. Crable and the commissioner to say if there's any potential board of managers in any part of the state, we will be the recommended search firm to work with these school districts across the state.
Some of us have done the Lone Star Governance piece.
Okay. Great questions. Any other questions?
Hi.
Hey.
Do you offer any team of 8 trainings once our superintendent is secured, and can you walk us through what that will look like?
Absolutely. So it's different flavors, so it depends on what you're looking for. So we customize our team of 8 trainings according to your needs. We identify the needs assessment first. We customize the curriculum, the content, the agenda to meet those needs specifically and what you're looking for. So our team of retired superintendents, whether it's Dr. Linares, Dr. Warnell, and others across the state that represent us, would be made available to you. So we will work around the parameters that you set forth. So it's customized and it's unique to every board, because even though there's probably some synergy with the training needs, in all likelihood, every district, and we all know this, every district has its own uniqueness. So we want to be conscientious of that. And so as we develop the content and the curriculum, we will work with you hands-on in that work. Most recently, we had a newly hired superintendent. He's what I like to call a neophyte in the seat. He just started his first year a couple years ago in the Valley, and we provided some executive coaching and board training with him and his the trustees that he works alongside with. So, and we don't just do this in Texas. Obviously, we do this elsewhere too. And we, a matter of fact, we just had a request last week to do this in a district in West Texas that I can't yet name.
You mentioned in your presentation that you have, for lack of a better term, several satellite outlets that, and that may not be the right term, but that's one that comes to mind right now, throughout the nation that you use or that you have. In order to ensure us that we're not necessarily getting recycled candidates, what avenues do you use to recruit new candidates to ensure that we're getting the best of the best?
Great question. So I showed the screenshot of our LinkedIn profile, and that's just one of many examples. So let's say tonight, if all goes planned and you choose us to work with as your partner in this effort, I will tweet out immediately, thank you, DeSoto ISD, for entrusting in JG Consulting to be a true collaborator in this work. That message is going to get disseminated across the entire mass of the K-12 public education in the U.S. and now even in Canada. We just hired our first consultant in Toronto because we're going to begin doing this work in 2019 in the provinces of Canada. So when we cast our net and we ensure that we're not recycling the stable of candidates that I like to refer to, we are going to touch every corner utilizing the National Alliance of Black School Educators job profile, the TASANet profile locally. Even though this district isn't the size of Council of Great City Schools, we have the network internally to utilize that. The Broad Foundation will be another, ALAS will be one, and all of their state-based affiliates. So when you look at the national organizations, think of all the state affiliates. The United States is a huge market. To give you an example, most recently we just named, or Victoria ISD just named their lone finalist. They had representation from 14 states, 51 total applicants. The leader they chose was from Iowa. First time to move to Texas, but obviously very well qualified. And Pat can speak to the impressive job that he did to beat some very high quality caliber talent. But because of our networks, we didn't know him specifically to pick up the phone and say, hey, Dr. Shepard, we have a great opportunity for you. It was through all of our networking and our referral process that he came to us. And I can take a deeper dive into that, but simply put, the superintendent who serves in Eanes ISD was formerly in Illinois before he came to Texas. He referred because he knew how we worked, and I know Dr. Leonard in Eanes. He said, oh, I got amazing talent for you. What we do is when we get an opportunity, one of the first sets of phone calls I make are to a series of retired superintendents who don't necessarily represent us, but are well-known nationwide. And I'll ask them because they've done a tremendous job of training talent, and they keep a pulse as well, because they might serve as a consultant in other areas, but those are all the efforts we make starting day one. And if we're notified tonight that we're your team to support you in this work, the work starts tonight, so before midnight, and we can have things cooking as early as tomorrow. And I will say this, based on the screenshot, we've already received phone calls from interested candidates saying, hey, we really hope you get this. I'd love to apply. And that's a testament to the community and to the stellar reputation and the rich tradition here. So the simple fact that people are already reaching out to us before there's an application open says a lot to the great work that you've done. So I anticipate you're going to have a high volume of candidates.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Watson, you have any questions, sir?
I do not.
Thank you guys for your presentation. A lot of the questions that I've typically asked, you guys answered. one thing was being exclusive to DeSoto, so it's great to hear you on the back nine, one of the districts, and that you guys will be committed. It also speaks volumes to me that you brought your team with you that would be, I assume, on our caseload, so to speak. So thank you guys for showing up and showing that good faith effort to present to this board exactly what you would bring to the table, as well as having the individuals who will be running that day-to-day here as well.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to meet all of you. We look forward to serving DeSoto ISD. Our contact information can be found on our website. Referrals are there as well. You can contact any of those that we included in our packet, our proposal. So I welcome you to do that. And if we can be of service, please don't hesitate to contact us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, board, if there's no objection. Go ahead. If there's no objection, the time is now 8:30. That's 34, right? Not 39. Okay, thank you. 34. So let's go ahead and bring the next group in, and then we will begin at 8:40.